My beloved sisters in faith, in a world that is constantly pulling you in 1,000 different directions, there is wisdom in redirecting your energy inward. Today, I want to remind you of the immense strength that lies in focusing on yourself, your character, your deen, your growth, and the incredible peace that comes from choosing silence over chaos. Not every reaction deserves your voice, and not every moment requires your presence. Let us journey into a reminder that is rooted in the Sunnah, clothed in wisdom, and anchored in dignity. Silence is a shield, and when a woman understands the power that lies in withholding her voice in moments of provocation, she steps into a realm of spiritual and emotional mastery that very few attain. The Prophet Muhammad taught us that silence is a form of wisdom, especially when words could lead to regret. When a woman is silent, it does not mean she is weak or voiceless. Rather, it means she is wise enough to know that not every situation deserves her energy. In a society that glorifies constant expression, constant opinion, and constant noise, choosing silence is not just countercultural. It is courageous. It is an act of submission to Allah's guidance over the ego's impulse. It is the deep understanding that sometimes, saying nothing is more powerful than saying everything. A silent woman is not one who lacks words. She is one who has the discernment to know when her words would benefit and when they would cause harm. Silence gives her control, not only over her tongue but over her emotions. It gives her space to hear the voice of Allah in her heart, rather than the chaos of opinions from the outside world. It allows her to respond from a place of clarity instead of reacting from a place of confusion. It protects her from falling into sin, backbiting, gossip, slander, or argumentation, which can quickly unravel the fabric of her spirituality. Silence allows her to process pain and disappointment without immediately speaking from it. It allows her to hand over her hurt to Allah, the all-seeing, the all-hearing, who is fully aware of every injustice, every slight, every misjudgment she has endured. When she remains silent in the face of provocation, she is not giving the enemy power. She is surrendering the battle to the one who never loses. She is holding her peace as a weapon. She is not avoiding confrontation out of fear, but mastering confrontation through wisdom. A silent woman knows that Allah is her defender, her witness, her vindicator, and her judge, so she does not rush to explain herself, prove herself, or fight every battle that comes her way. She understands that some words are better spoken in sujood than in arguments. She finds that the more she guards her tongue, the more she guards her soul. She knows that every word is recorded, every statement weighed, and every sentence can either be a rope to elevate her in Jannah or a chain to drag her down. She knows the reward of silence when anger arises, when criticism stings, when rumors fly. She knows that the one who controls their tongue has already won half the battle against Shaitan. And in choosing silence, she aligns herself with the discipline of the Prophet, who remained quiet when silence was better and spoke only when his words were truth, beneficial, or necessary. This kind of silence is not passive. It is active submission to Allah's way. Ask ChatGPT. You said keynote no 2. Expanded into 500 words. Don't add ending sentences. Don't add any headings. ChatGPT said, your growth begins where your attention ends, because what you feed with your focus becomes the center of your life. A woman who is constantly consumed by the lives of others, what they wear, what they say, what they achieve, how they behave, ends up starving her own soul of the nourishment it needs to thrive. Allah has gifted every woman a unique path, a distinct test, a specific journey meant for her soul's elevation, and yet when she spends her energy comparing, watching, reacting, and engaging with distractions, she delays the very transformation Allah has written for her. The moment a woman shifts her focus from the external to the internal, something divine begins to awaken inside her. She no longer finds joy in being part of the noise, because she is too busy building herself in silence. Her heart begins to heal when she stops measuring her success by what others are doing and starts measuring it by how close she is drawing to her Lord. Her soul finds stability when she is no longer chasing attention or validation from people, but is instead seeking the nearness of Allah with every step. The world might be filled with opportunities to compare, to compete, to criticize, but none of these things bring peace. Peace comes when she narrows her focus down to one thing, herself in the eyes of Allah. She starts to ask the important questions. Am I praying with khushu? Am I remembering Allah in the quiet moments? Am I doing what I can to purify my heart from jealousy, pride, or resentment? That is where growth begins. Not in speaking about others, but in speaking to her Lord. Not in being seen by the world, but in being seen in her secret acts of worship. She no longer needs to prove anything to anyone, because she realizes that her only competition is who she was yesterday. And once she focuses on herself, the things that used to upset her lose their power. the opinions of people begin to fade. The desire to respond to every insult, every lie, every misunderstanding, it melts away. She sees her own journey as sacred, and doesn't let it be disturbed by the noise of others. Her focus becomes her tool, her strength, her sword. She is no longer overwhelmed by the external chaos because her internal world is being refined by the remembrance of Allah. She begins to set boundaries, not because she is selfish, but because she is focused. She no longer wastes her emotional energy on things that don't feed her soul. She becomes intentional about her time, her worship, her healing, her growth. And that intention becomes the foundation upon which Allah begins to build something new inside her. Something stronger, wiser, and more peaceful than anything she's known. All because she chose to stop looking outward, and started focusing inward where her Lord was patiently waiting for her attention to return. Every woman is a garden, a divine creation designed to be nurtured, cultivated, and protected with care and intention. When a woman begins to see herself through this lens, she stops allowing others to trample through her heart, her mind, and her time without purpose. A garden cannot thrive when it is neglected, or when it is exposed to every passerby who does not understand its value. Likewise, a woman must guard her emotional and spiritual soil, choosing carefully what she allows to take root. She must recognize that her worth does not come from the validation of others, but from the one who created her with precision and honor. Just as a gardener tends to their soil, ensuring it is rich, fertile, and free of weeds, a woman must tend to her inner world, removing the thoughts that choke her growth, the relationships that poison her spirit, and the habits that drain her energy. She must be intentional with her words, gentle with her heart, and consistent in her connection to her Creator. A healthy garden is not grown overnight. It is the result of daily attention, even when the growth is invisible. In the same way, her healing, her discipline, her strength may not be visible to the world, but in the unseen, Allah is planting something beautiful. Her job is not to impress others with her appearance, her achievements, or her status. Her role is to make sure that the roots of her faith are deep enough to withstand the droughts and storms of life. A garden that is overexposed loses its moisture, its fragrance, and its strength. A woman who shares everything with everyone loses the sacredness of her journey. Privacy becomes a part of her strength. Silence becomes a part of her beauty. Stillness becomes a part of her power. She learns that not everyone deserves access to her story, her struggles, or her softness. She chooses to bloom in places where Allah is pleased, not where the world is watching. She waters her soul with prayer, fertilizes her mind with Quran, and prunes her life of anything that pulls her away from her purpose. And when weeds try to grow, thoughts of jealousy, bitterness, impatience, she removes them gently but firmly, knowing that one unchecked weed can choke the entire garden. She seeks companionship with those who help her grow, not those who compete with her growth. She surrounds herself with light, with knowledge, with dhikr, with peace. Even when the seasons of life are cold or harsh, she does not curse the winter, for she knows that growth is still taking place beneath the surface. She understands that Allah does not waste the effort of any believer, and that every tear, every prayer, every silent struggle is watering her soul in ways she cannot yet see. Her garden is sacred, and it is her responsibility to protect it with wisdom and patience. Not every battle is worth fighting. And a woman who understands this truth walks with a quiet confidence that comes from knowing when to engage and when to retreat. There is wisdom in choosing silence over argument, and grace in walking away from provocations that are designed to steal peace. When a woman spends her days responding to every insult, proving herself to every critic, and reacting to every situation, she becomes exhausted and drained of the very energy that was meant for her spiritual growth and personal development. Allah has not created her to be involved in every drama, to defend herself against every accusation, or to attend to every conflict. Some battles are not hers to fight. They are distractions sent to delay her progress. And when she chooses to disengage from unnecessary conflict, she is not surrendering in weakness but rising in strength. Her silence is not approval, it is discipline. Her lack of response is not ignorance, it is wisdom. She is guarding her peace the way a believer guards their prayer, with intention and vigilance. Every moment she chooses peace over retaliation, she is choosing closeness to Allah over validation from people. The Prophet Muhammad was the master of restraint, never lowering himself to petty disputes or needless arguments. He taught us that strength is not in overpowering another, but in controlling oneself in moments of anger. A woman who internalizes this sunnah does not allow others to control her emotions. She is not a puppet on the strings of someone else's mood. She is grounded, centered, rooted in her relationship with Allah, and therefore does not rise to every bait, or fall into every trap. When false things are said about her, she turns to the one who knows the truth. When she is misunderstood, she finds comfort in the knowledge that Allah understands her better than she understands herself. When people try to provoke her, she remembers that silence is not a void but a shield, one that protects her soul from the arrows of ego, pride and vengeance. She knows that some fires burn out faster when they are not fed. She knows that dignity is more valuable than winning an argument. She values her energy too much to waste it on battles that do not bring her closer to Jannah. Her time, her voice, her presence. She spends them wisely, investing them in places that nourish her soul and elevate her character. She doesn't need to shout to be strong. She doesn't need to be heard to be right. Her strength is quiet but powerful, unseen but unshakable. She knows that some battles are best left to Allah, the one who sees all, hears all, and rights all wrongs in the most perfect of ways. She trusts that walking away is not weakness when walking away means walking toward peace, growth, and divine reward. Not every battle is worth fighting, and a woman who understands this truth walks with a quiet confidence that comes from knowing when to engage and when to retreat. There is wisdom in choosing silence over argument, and grace in walking away from provocations that are designed to steal peace. When a woman spends her days responding to every insult, proving herself to every critic, and reacting to every situation, she becomes exhausted and drained of the very energy that was meant for her spiritual growth and personal development. Allah has not created her to be involved in every drama, to defend herself against every accusation, or to attend to every conflict. Some battles are not hers to fight. They are distractions sent to delay her progress. And when she chooses to disengage from unnecessary conflict, she is not surrendering in weakness but rising in strength. Her silence is not approval, it is discipline. Her lack of response is not ignorance, it is wisdom. She is guarding her peace the way a believer guards their prayer, with intention and vigilance. Every moment she chooses peace over retaliation. She is choosing closeness to Allah over validation from people. The Prophet Muhammad was the master of restraint, never lowering himself to petty disputes or needless arguments. He taught us that strength is not in overpowering another, but in controlling oneself in moments of anger. A woman who internalizes this sunnah does not allow others to control her emotions. She is not a puppet on the strings of someone else's mood. She is grounded, centered, rooted in her relationship with Allah, and therefore does not rise to every bait or fall into every trap. When false things are said about her, she turns to the one who knows the truth. When she is misunderstood, she finds comfort in the knowledge that Allah understands her better than she understands herself. When people try to provoke her, how she remembers that silence is not a void but a shield, one that protects her soul from the arrows of ego, pride, and vengeance. She knows that some fires burn out faster when they are not fed. She knows that dignity is more valuable than winning an argument. She values her energy too much to waste it on battles that do not bring her closer to Jannah. Her time, her voice, her presence. She spends them wisely, investing them in places that nourish her soul and elevate her character. She doesn't need to shout to be strong. She doesn't need to be heard to be right. Her strength is quiet but powerful, unseen but unshakable. She knows that some battles are best left to Allah, the one who sees all, hears all, and rights all wrongs in the most perfect of ways. She trusts that walking away is not weakness when walking away means walking toward peace, growth, and divine reward. Not every battle is worth fighting, and a woman who lives with this wisdom carries herself with a calm that confuses the world and pleases her Lord. She is not quick to react, not eager to defend every part of herself, not easily provoked by the noise and negativity that surrounds her. She has learned that peace is more valuable than proving a point, that growth is more sacred than gossip, and that silence can often carry more strength than 1,000 words. When others speak falsely about her, she does not rush to clarify or retaliate, because she knows that Allah is the ultimate witness and judge. Her heart is not tethered to the approval of people, so she does not crumble when misunderstood. Instead, she surrenders her pain to Allah in the quiet of the night, confident that He sees what is hidden and will handle what she does not need to touch. She chooses her battles with care, because she values her time, her energy, and her spiritual well-being. She understands that constantly fighting for her place in people's opinions only leads to exhaustion and distance from her purpose. Instead of fighting every time someone tests her, she pauses, reflects, and chooses a response that honors her values. Sometimes that response is silence, and sometimes it is walking away, not out of fear, not out of weakness, but out of strength and restraint. The kind of strength that can only come from a heart trained in submission to Allah. She reminds herself that the Prophet was insulted, rejected, and falsely accused. Yet he remained composed and surrendered the outcome to Allah. He never lowered himself to pointless disputes or allowed the arrogance of others to shake his peace. She follows that example with dignity, remembering that not every loud voice deserves her attention. Not every attack deserves her defense. Not every challenge deserves her presence. Her silence is not an absence, it is a statement that she knows who she is, and more importantly, who she is. When people try to provoke her, she does not panic, because her worth is not built on their words. When the storm of criticism rises, she stays rooted in her relationship with her Creator, knowing that storms come and go, but faith anchors the soul. Her focus remains on pleasing Allah, not winning arguments. Her prayer becomes her response. Her dua becomes her language. Her sabre becomes her strength. And as she walks away from the noise of unnecessary battles, she walks deeper into the safety of Allah's plan. She learns that some victories are not loud or public. They are quiet, hidden, felt in the heart when she chooses peace over chaos, wisdom over impulse, and faith over ego. She lets go not because she's weak, but because she knows that what is meant for her will never require her to lower herself to gain it. The strongest woman isn't loud. She is calm, clear, and spiritually grounded because her strength comes from a source that does not fluctuate with the world around her. Her strength is not defined by how quickly she can respond to insult, how sharply she can correct someone, or how loudly she can prove a point. Instead, her strength is measured by her ability to hold herself together when everything around her is trying to pull her apart. She understands that the power she carries is not in her volume but in her silence, not in her dominance, but in her discipline. The strength of a spiritually grounded woman lies in her stillness, in her ability to stand firm in faith when emotions are screaming for reaction. Her strength is in her ability to feel pain and choose patience, to face criticism and choose dignity, to experience loss and still choose gratitude. She is not swayed by every opinion nor broken by every setback because her heart is anchored in Allah. She is clear about who she is and what she values, and that clarity protects her from the confusion that often arises when the soul is detached from its Lord. She does not need to convince others of her worth, because she has already found it in the words of Allah. She knows she was not created to chase approval, to please the crowd, or to meet unrealistic expectations. She was created to worship, to grow, to carry light into a world of darkness. Her strength is her quiet persistence in seeking,